Not for 1 year, not for 1 day, no matter what anyone else had to say, did Edna Rose Liebergen's faith ever pause. She knew that one day she'd meet Santa Claus. She was past 84, almost 85, and even though everyone said, "Sakes alive," what Edna Rose wanted more than anything else was to ride in his sleigh like a bona fide elf. She had wished for it annually since she was 4 and had written the North Pole requests by the score.
Dear Santa, I don't need no presents or stuff. A ride in your sleigh would be more than enough.
But at 84, with her chronic conditions, the chances were slim of a sleigh expedition. Despite all the reasons, she couldn't resist the feeling that Santa just had to exist. All her life she'd been laughed at and endlessly jeered. In 4th grade they taunted, "Hey kid, you're weird. You're nearly 10, don't you know the score? No big kids like us wait for Santa no more." But year after year, though they called her a goof, Edna Rose waited outside on the roof, hoping to ascertain some sort of proof that St. Nick was more than a Christmas-time spoof. Oh, in the years when her children were small, the Liebergen household would just have a ball with stuffing and wrapping and decking of halls, and Edna was always the gayest of all. When her children announced they no longer believed, Edna said nothing but laughed up her sleeve. Her twinkling eyes and grin couldn't conceal the fact that she knew Santa was real. Through decades of doubters and countless naysayers, Edna continued to always say prayers that one day the big man would finally arrive and whisper, "Hey, Edna, let's go for a drive." Now, since she'd turned 80, although with misgivings, in Sunnydale, Florida, she had been living at the Golden Sunset Retirement Villa, which smelled of perfume, Ben Gay, and vanilla. Her well-meaning children had met with resistance when they had suggested she needed assistance.
In Florida yet? Why, there's not even snow. I don't see the point, but if you say so, I'll go.
So she joined other folks in their golden years to live the respectable life of her peers. Despite all the knitting and crosswords she did, Edna still said that she felt like a kid, especially at Christmas when others were glum. She would giggle and whistle and constantly hum verses of songs that were happy and jolly with lyrics of reindeer and snowmen and holly. Her holiday greetings were hearty and swift, and to every neighbor a specially made gift. A jingle bell cane for old Frank down the hall, and to crabby Miss Creets a nice wreath for the wall. She knitted warm booties for everyone's feet, though no one could wear them because of the heat. And no matter the climate, she put up a tree right there in her window for others to see. The one thing that people found strangest of all was the fact that each year she would head to the mall, climb on the store Santa's lap with delight, then her Christmas wish she would proudly recite.
Santa, I've asked you for 80-odd years, and the thought of it still nearly brings me to tears. Just once, would you spirit me out of my bed and give me a whirl in your wonderful sled?
Now she knew from the fake beard and red suit so tacky, this wasn't real Santa, but some sort of lackey. Still, she didn't think it completely absurd that he might be someone to get real Santa word. He leaned in and whispered right in her good ear, "Edna, he hears you. This might be your year."
Finally, a sign! Oh, it's perfectly clear. I have to be ready when Santa gets here.
She hit the floor running, dashed past all the shelves of holiday baubles, high-fiving the elves.
He's coming! He's coming! I knew that he would when he heard of my efforts to be extra good.
The 24th came, the big night for certain. She dimmed all the lights and left open the curtain. The window that looked out upon the still night was slightly ajar instead of locked tight. She was prudently dressed from her head to her toes in several warm layers of traveling clothes, including 2 pair of support pantyhose, when she yanked up the blankets right under her nose. Filled with delight and euphoric tension, she waited with childlike apprehension, ears keenly peeled and breath fully bated. She lay in the stillness and tacitly waited. Was that a bell, or the clock chiming 2? Reindeer or Frank on his way to the loo? Her eyes became heavy, her breath became deep, her pale lashes dipped as she tipped off to sleep. Then she sprang up, nearly knocking her head, and reached for her teeth, which were next to the bed. "Oh, it's just you," she said with relief, as Santa stepped forward and said, "I'll be brief. Normally this would be strictly taboo, but I'm going to make an exception for you. Edna Rose Liebergen, please do me the honor of flying with Blitzen and Vixen and Donner." Before she could speak, they were up near the sleigh, and Edna's old heart was just pumping away, but her smile grew wider with every beat, and Santa just beamed as she climbed in the seat. She said, "Aren't you coming?" He said, "You'll be fine," as he handed her 2 pair of jingle-clad lines. Quick as a flash, she was knocked on her back when the sleigh bolted up with an audible crack. She clutched for dear life to both of the reins as the rush of the G-force addled her brains. She was worried her old hands were going to slip because of arthritis. She hadn't much grip. As the sleigh throttled forward, it didn't take long to realize her fingers felt nimble and strong. Her bifocal lenses were dangerously icy, but taking them off now would be rather dicey. Just then a great gust took the specs from her face. She looked in amazement far out into space. Her vision was clear, 2020 for sure, as she stared at the stars in the night sky so pure. She reached up to brush back a wisp from her brow and was startled to find that she didn't know how, that her skin was all smooth like that of a girl, and her hair had grown thick and cascading in curls. She threw back her head and she let out a laugh as the reindeer continued their heavenward path. The wind stung her cheeks, but she savored the trip like a child on the playground who plays crack the whip. They angled around in a wide, sweeping arc past the golf course, the rec hall, the shuffleboard park. As they flew past her building, asleep in their beds, were her neighbors with visions of youth in their heads. When the sleigh gently landed, she let out a yelp. Santa offered a hand, but she needed no help. Edna Rose lightly hopped out like a sprite and stood on the roof in the glow of the night. "Oh, Santa, I just don't know how to express my thanks and my joy and my happiness." "Sweet Edna, you do those things year after year. If that weren't true, I wouldn't be here." So he made her a promise. "Next Christmas, same place." And a wonderful light spread over her face.
"I was just wondering, could a few others come?"
Santa chuckled and nodded and stuck up his thumb. As she smiled from her window and waved a goodbye, she watched Santa's rig fly off into the sky. But thoughts of next Christmas were already brewing.
"I wonder what Frank and Miss Creets might be doing."